Okay, before we get started, as this is our first Fishbone Friday edition here on YouTube, I want to first explain what a fishbone diagram is and why it's important when it comes to root cause analysis. A fishbone diagram, also known as an Ishikawa cause and effect diagram, is a popular and proven method of root cause analysis, typically focusing on six categories within a business, or in this case, a distribution center. The six categories are people, equipment, process, environment, management, and last but certainly not least, tools. It's an important exercise for both executives and operators to be familiar with because it creates discussion and transparency around all potential failure points, either on the surface or when it comes to an underlying process. When all potential failures are out in the open, each can be explored more in depth using a 5 why exercise or something similar. I'll have more on that at the end of the video. In any case, whether you're looking to proactively isolate potential causes of failure for an upcoming important project, or if you're looking to find the root cause of an ongoing challenge in your day-to-day, a fishbone diagram is a great first step. Now, before we get into our first topic, if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, do make sure to head over to our page after this video and check it out. Fishbone Friday is just an example of the helpful and actionable content we're posting there each and every week. Also, we do host invite-only webinars exploring all things fulfillment optimization, so the best way to get on those is to follow the page. Of course, we're now here in YouTube, so if you found this video to be helpful, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to our page for more. Okay, without further ado, let's get to our first topic. Now, there's some recency bias here because this wasn't the topic that we started with on LinkedIn initially. However, for our most recent edition, we asked our LinkedIn audience what topic they would like us to explore, and nearly half of the respondents voted for a failed system implementation. If you're also a LinkedIn follower and you voted for one of our other topics, don't worry because we'll be doing a video for each of those in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned. Now, this is a topic that's relevant for the implementation of really any system, whether it's a management system, optimization system, or an ERP system of some kind. And when we say failure, it's important to note that we're not just talking about the situations where a project is scrapped completely during the implementation stage. We're also referring to situations where the implementation process may have been a relative success, but the system just didn't live up to expectations in the weeks, months, or years following. Lastly, don't wait for this exercise after you've experienced a failed implementation. It can cost millions of dollars in wasted capex, drain internal resources, and can set the operation or network back years when it comes to strategy execution. If you have a system implementation project on the horizon, complete this exercise as a proactive measure. Let's start with people. Now we're starting with a difficult one. You're not going to get many people admitting that they were the cause of a failed project. This category isn't trying to isolate a single person or even place the blame on the competency of the project team. It's meant to explore the team dynamics and individual motivations more than anything. Here are three potential root causes for a failed system implementation under our people category. Inadequate coordination between project personnel. As with any project, coordination of timing, resources, goals, and expectations is everything. If there is a disconnect in any of these areas within the project team, or even between the project team and the team that was responsible for selecting the project in the first place, if they're different, you're not putting yourself in a position for success. Your project team is not fully invested in the success of the project. When assembling a project team for a system implementation, it's critical that all members share the same goal and all are committed to the success of the project. It might be relatively easy to notice friction from those who are working against the project, but for those that are going through the motions who are not completely bought in, it might be harder to perceive. Ensure all members are fully on board from the time the system is purchased. Insufficient user training or stakeholder involvement. This one may sound like it's more applicable on the tail end of the implementation, but it's important to also understand from the get-go as well. What kind of training will be provided for the system and who will be on the team that will be having the training itself? Typically, when it comes to larger system implementations or one that is technical in nature, there's usually three types of training. User training for those who will be responsible for the usage of the system, executive training for those responsible for driving the use of the system, and ultimately any ROI, and finally, technical training for those responsible for testing, troubleshooting, and configuration. Moving on to equipment. When we talk about equipment, we're referring to physical equipment within an operation. This could include everything from racking, order selection technology, all the way to IT infrastructure. With that said, the first potential root cause in this category is incompatibility with existing equipment. An easy example of this would be implementing a slotting optimization system into an operation that uses only one or two rack types. In this case, the system isn't the problem, the existing equipment is the constraint. Inadequate IT resources to support system infrastructure. This one is something that we personally see a lot, especially in larger distribution networks. When selecting a system or technology, always understand the IT resource requirements prior to making a purchase decision. This is not just for the initial site, but for the full rollout. Consider the difference between on-premise and cloud-based systems and make sure you have the resources available for the system you are choosing. Making this decision after you've bought the system is oftentimes too late. Outdated infrastructure. This one ties into the points above, but do keep in mind the technology lifecycle when considering your options, both when it comes to your existing systems and when it comes to the new ones you're about to implement. Are you buying a technology that is outdated? If so, does it require additional infrastructure or investment? And finally, when will it become obsolete? Moving on to processes. Inadequate evaluation prior to purchase decision. For the implementations that fail, a lot of them are marked for failure even before the implementation process begins. Why? Well, sometimes the system isn't evaluated properly and the wrong system is chosen. We'll be doing a video solely on this topic a little bit later, so I'll keep this explanation short. Ultimately, where technology is today, before a system is implemented, you shouldn't settle for anything less than a data-driven preview of system functionality, including proof of how and where the system will deliver value to the decision maker and to the overall organization. It may seem like a lot to ask, especially when most companies will want to sell you solely on a feature list and generic history of success, but it's time to demand more. The system does not have a dedicated user process. Who are the users? Where does the system fit within the organization's hierarchy? Does the user know why they're using the system? All of these questions should be answered during the implementation stage, especially if the new system is expected to replace an existing system or manual process that your people are familiar with. Similar to the previous point, in addition to understanding the user process, having a reporting structure in place is critical. Outside of the daily user base, ask yourself who is ultimately responsible for the success of the project and ultimately the success of the system once it's implemented. It's also worth noting here that when you're evaluating a system, make sure to put emphasis on the ability to not only track usage, but overall success. This is a big differentiation when it comes to cloud systems versus on-premise, but keep in mind that not all cloud systems offer this. Moving on to environment. System is not properly suited to the environment. This goes back to the point about proper evaluation. No system is perfect and no system will provide 100% of the functionality you want. What's critical, however, is if it provides the functionality that you need. For example, investing in top-of-the-line management system for a 50,000 square foot facility is probably overkill. While it may provide you with everything you want in a management system, it's a lot more than you need. Suboptimal operation negating system benefits. This one touches on a couple of different areas. What are your expectations for the system? Are they realistic or do they require additional expenditure, layout modifications, process improvements? Don't risk decision paralysis by overthinking your options, but also don't make the mistake of implementing a system and thinking it's a silver bullet. As part of the project, ensure you consider other areas of the operation that may need some attention in order for you to get the most out of your new system. Inadequate partner or vendor support. Part of the ineffective system evaluation is a proper evaluation of your partner. I've never liked the term vendor, as nowadays, if you're buying a cloud system, the company you purchase from should be just as invested in the success of the project as you are. This is when it comes to giving you all of the information you need to make the right decision from the get-go, providing adequate training and project support, ultimately making sure your team gets off on the right foot once the system has been implemented. Management. Inadequate dedication of project resources. If you have multiple projects running, make sure that they're prioritized properly, not just when it comes to the IT support, but the overall attention of the company. If resources are not properly allocated to the project, it's not likely that the system will get the attention that it needs once it's implemented, if it gets that far. Incomplete understanding of the business need. This can be from the perspective of the decision maker and those involved in the reporting structure, or this can be purely from a financial sense. What kind of benefits is the system expected to bring the company and to the users? Not every system is going to drive its own ROI. We see this happen a lot with management systems. Although critical to running an operation, a management system is not going to inform you of suboptimal processes or recommend a layout adjustment if it's needed. If efficiency improvement is what you're after, for example, you'll need to look outside of the typical management system functionality. Expectations not clearly quantified or communicated. This one is tied to understanding the business need. Once the business need is understood, expectations must be communicated in a clear and transparent way. If system use is discretionary and is not driven from the top, usage will likely drop over time, as will the benefits of the system to the company. Last but certainly not least, let's look at tools. System is not flexible enough to meet the needs of the operation. Similar to our first point under the environment category, you're never going to find a system that fits your operation 100%. However, not only having a system that can be customized within reason to your operation, but also working with a partner that is willing and has the ability to implement your own user's recommendation will prove to be invaluable. Now, although we didn't really get into cost a lot with these categories, beware of customization costs, as these alone have the potential to throw a wrench in even the most solid of business cases. System is complex and difficult to use. Now, in no situation should a user interface be the deciding factor in a system implementation decision, but it should be considered. Overly complex systems will create friction, especially if the value has not been properly communicated or, quote, easier methods exist. If you're introducing a new system to your team, be sure to include proper training, support, and make sure to not only justify the use, but ensure the habit is built quickly. All right, there you have it, a root cause analysis of a failed system implementation. Keep in mind that although we covered 17 possible root causes over 6 categories, it's in no way an exhaustive list. Now, there's never just one reason a system implementation fails. There's likely a couple of underlying processes that are to blame. To dig a bit deeper into what processes might need refining, we'd suggest trying a 5 why approach. The 5 why approach is an interrogative technique used to explore cause and effect relationships. Essentially, you would revert back to your fishbone diagram, choose one possible root cause that you feel is worth exploring further, and then start asking why until you arrive at a suboptimal process. I'm oversimplifying the process, of course, but I'll leave that topic for another video. If you would, however, like a 5 why template to get you started, I've included a link to our blog in the description. Sign up to our newsletter from the blog and we'll send you our 5 why problem solving template along with this Fishbone Friday worksheet. If you can think of any more potential root causes for a failed system implementation, be sure to leave your comments below. Also, if this helped you proactively uncover potential root causes in your own operation, please let us know in the comments. We love hearing your success stories. Until next time, my name is Robbie Cluett, Director of Business Development and Customer Success for Syncontext Supply Chain.